Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Cars and Coffee with me, Kenny Brown. And if you're a car guy, car gal, and want to learn more about cars and tech and all sorts of cool things about performance, well, you're in the right place. Because we're going to talk about some really cool things today. Let's see, on the list, we've got, this is going to be good. We're going to talk about the performance planning, the 5 critical steps in performance planning. This is something we talk about heavily in the workshops, and also we focus on it pretty heavily in the Speed Therapy Academy. Also in the Speed Therapy Academy, there's another one coming up. I'll talk about more about that in a little bit. We're also going to talk, this is on the tech side, on what Kenny's working on category. We're going to be talking about what I do, all the tracker race cars, series cars that we do. I add wheel Wickers to improve aerodynamics and downforce, and we'll talk about that. And then, as promised, we've developed a more cost-effective coil-over package for the S197s, working with Strange, and I'll show you what we've got. We've got, I think, the first full set that we've got in. We just got in this week. So that's kind of like the lineup for today. There's a lot of cool stuff we're going to talk about. And I think while we're waiting for more people to join us, we'll jump into some real quick questions. We have a big question from Christopher, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to give him a very good answer. It says, I have a whine during deceleration, which seems to come from a transmission, also present during cruising. Should I be concerned? The car just had the rear left half shaft and wheel hub replaced. With that in question in mind, could Kenny cover ways to make MT82 transmission better for track use? I know this trans is hopeless, but still. And based on my research in the service manual, I would be concerned, as this whine is under acceleration is caused by transmission bearing or broken gears. Also, the whine during coasting deceleration is because of incorrect driveline angle. Need to get my car into the shop, I guess. Well, that's a pretty long question, but there was like a second question part that came into it. Based on my research and service manual, I should be concerned as the whine is under acceleration cause transmission bearing broken gear. Oh, I guess he's already put that in there. Yeah, I mean, whines, it's really hard to pinpoint a whine in a car because sometimes you think it's one place, it's actually somewhere else. You know, rear ends, actually differentials whine the most. If the bearings start to wear out or the gears aren't right in the line, you'll get some whining back there. As far as the transmission, if it is in the transmission, there's a really good chance you've got some bearings gone bad, or you've got a broken tooth on a synchro. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things it could be. You know, without actually listening to it myself, it's hard for me to speculate. But I mean, it's not a good thing, especially if it's getting worse. It's a bad thing. So I think you might be on the right path looking at the transmission, but that's the best I can offer. As far as the driveline, I don't think the driveline, incorrect driveline angle would cause that. Typically, that's you've got a 2-piece drive shaft, and they don't whine. It's a live axle car, and the pinion angle is wrong, then possibly. But yeah, I think I'd kind of concentrate on the transmission, and you're going to have to get an expert opinion from like a local service guy, somebody that knows those cars. And as far as improving the MT82 transmission, you can always put some like the extra slippery stuff in to make it shift better. What we do is we get rid of the factory shifter. I just hate them. And we put, I think we use these Bartons. We use a shifter to mount the entire shifter mounts on the transmission. Part of the problems with the 197s and 550s is half of the shifter mounts on the transmission and half mounts on the body, which means that you got 2 different things moving in 2 different directions. So under hard acceleration, engines torquing, they kind of get screwed up. So we put shifters that mount directly onto the transmission, and they work a whole lot better. I mean, that's about the best you can do with an MT82 transmission. But yeah, that's going to lead into the next question, which is really, really interesting. This comes from Alessandro. He said, the best DCT or sequential for Mustang S550, pros and cons and costs. Okay, DCT is dual clutch transmission. It's kind of like, it's a pretty cool transmission. On a lot of high-end cars. And the thing about a dual clutch transmission is the shifting is absolutely seamless, because it's got almost like two different transmissions in one. I mean, you can just shift, and the shifts are just lightning fast and totally transparent. Extremely cool transmissions. However, we talked to Tremec, this is a number of years ago, about putting a dual clutch in some of our cars, and the big challenge is the electronics. To have a dual clutch transmission, it has to be wired to the engine, and you have to get the engine and the transmission talking and working together. So that's the biggest setback to trying to use a dual clutch transmission, is just the whole electronics issue. I mean, you have to have an electronic engineer, I think, work all that out. So the next one is the sequential. Okay, so what a sequential transmission is, I mean, you don't, like a H pattern, you have shift. With a sequential on a stick, it's just bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang one way, bang, bang, bang the other way, and it shifts, like really quick. The thing about sequentials is that in the transmission itself, there are no synchros. What they have is something called dog rings, which we use in like race car transmissions since forever. Have had dog rings instead of synchros, because synchros you can't shift fast or hard, and it just won't work. What a dog ring is on the gear, there's some like little cogs, and in between there's another thing that has little cogs, and when you shift, they just instantaneously lock together. So you don't need a clutch, you can just bang gears. So in order to get a sequential to really work, you need a dog gear type transmission, which is not super practical for the street. But nevertheless, there's a number of decent ones out there. There's the thing about, if you're looking at a sequential, first thing you have to look at is what the torque rating is. Because there's a lot of sequentials for smaller cars that only go up to like 350 on torque. Those are the ones that are reasonably priced. The decent ones that I've looked at in the past, like for a Mustang, they'll take like 600-700 pounds of torque, start around $16,000 to $18,000 and go up from there. And then you've got a lot of other things you have to go with it. If it's sequentials, you can either have it so it's like a stick shift, bang, bang, bang. Or, I mean, you get really fancy, you can just change it over to a sequential transaxle with paddle shift. I mean, you're talking like serious money to do that, although that would probably be the best, is get like a sequential differential. But then you have to have either pneumatic or electric paddles. I mean, it'd be cool, super expensive, but kind of combining the two questions, and the best solution is just simply the Tremec Magnum XL. I mean, it's a 6-speed, it's a great transmission. They shift like butter. They're like 600 pounds of torque. I mean, it's a great alternative. And the other pro to that is it drops right in. There's lots of people that have all the components. You need to just drop it in, bolt it up, and you're done. With sequential, there's a whole bunch of engineering that would have to go into getting it in, and then getting, the actual, if it's not a stick shift on the tunnel, to get the paddles to work. So, I mean, a dual clutch would be awesome, but just the electronics would be involved in getting the transmission and the engine talking together would be pretty significant. And then a sequential, I mean, if it's a race car, man, sequential is the only way to go. You can pick up a lot of time. You can drop you drop seconds off your lap with sequential transmissions. I was just thinking how many times you shift going around, and if you shift, it's only like half a second or even a second. For every shift, you start adding that up, and that's a whole bunch of seconds. But if you just shift and bang the gears right there, you're picking up time. So that's kind of like, my view on it. I mean, the best thing is just the Magnum XL. And if you do get the Magnum XL, there's two versions. The one you want is the one that has the 0.8 fifth gear. There's one that has like a 0.7 or something like that. You want a 0.8 fifth gear, just in case, because fourth gear is 1-to-1 ratio. And if you've got like 373s or 410, it might be like in some tracks, you got a really long straightaway that you just need to drop it into fifth gear for a little bit. And if you've got like an overdrive type fifth gear, you drop it into fifth gear and the car will slow down. If you got the 0.8 and you're going to still pull. So I mean, that's my recommendation. The Tremec Magnum XL is a wonderful transmission. So I think we had another late question come in too, didn't we, Carrie?
We sure did. Here it is from Carrie B. When torquing the bolts on the control arms after installation, should the car or suspension be loaded?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I've got two answers. We've got two different situations. If you've got like factory bushings or urethane bushings, you don't want to do the final torque until the car is setting at ride height. Especially if you've got like rubber bushings, factory bushings, you want to be sure the car is setting at ride height. If the car is jacked up and the suspension is drooped, and you torque the bushings down, and it's like the rubber bushings or even some urethane, then what's going to happen is it's actually going to put some spring rate into it. It's worse on rubber bushings. It's actually going to put some spring rate. So as the car goes down, all of a sudden the bushings are preloaded, which means you're going to wear out a lot faster. Urethane isn't so bad because that actually moves, but I'd still just do them when you're at ride height. Now, like on our rear grip kit, with all the rod ends, it doesn't make any difference. It makes zero difference because the rod ends have such good movement that it doesn't matter what position they're in. I mean, they're locked down, the ball's locked down, but the control arm keeps going up and down. So if you've got rubber bushings, absolutely torque your control arms when it's at ride height. I'd also kind of recommend that for urethane, although it's not really as critical. But for like our suspensions with rod ends, it doesn't matter which position you're in, you just bolt them down. Okay, so let me grab my whistle. Okay, we want to talk about the five critical steps in performance planning. Now, I go over this in a workshop. I think we're going to do a workshop here coming up, not too distant future. And then we go into in great detail in the academy. And Carrie has informed me that it looks like we're going to have a fall academy starting in August. We've got academy going right now, and it's going well. The second one, the third one, we're going to start at the end of August. So if you've got an interest, and a lot of people expressed interest in doing the academy, we can actually get you signed up anytime for the let's call it fall semester, for lack of a better thing. So, and you can just either through the messaging here or call in and talk to Carrie, and we can get you set up. So anyway, here's the 5 critical things that we talk about in performance planning. And planning is so important. If you're going to go on a trip, and today all you got to do is talk to your phone and tell you where you want to go, and poof, all of a sudden the whole route's planned out through the nav. But let's say pre-nav, if you wanted to go someplace, you have to pull out a map and say, okay, I'm going to go here and figure out the best way to get there. Well, performance planning on a car is absolutely no different. Because the number one thing in performance planning is start with the end in mind. You have to know where you're going to end up and you work backwards from there. Anytime I build a new car, a new platform, I always envision the entire car first. What's it going to be? And then from there in my mind, I kind of work backwards on the steps we need to do to get to that point. The same thing. I mean, if you're going to do a car, then your performance planning, think about where you want to be ultimately. And then you break it into steps or years or whatever. But you need to start with where you want to be, because if you don't, you may do something and make an update, and all of a sudden for the next step, well, you got to take that off and put something else on. So if you're planning out, then everything you put on, you don't have to back up and go backwards. The next thing is decide whether you're going to build a street car, a track car, or a race car, because the criteria on components are not completely different, but very different from each of those, because you don't want to put race car stuff on a street car, and you don't want to put street car stuff on a race car. So you have to make your mind up which it's going to be. And the track car is kind of in the middle. And in the track car, even, you have to figure out, is it a little street and a lot of track, or a lot of street and a little track? Because again, then all the components are different. And then you need to start. The next one is can't read my writing. Ever since I type so much on the computer, I go to write stuff, I can't even understand my own writing. I think writing before long is going to be a lost art. Expectations and budget. Make sure your budget and expectations are aligned. A lot of times people have these great ideas on what they want to do. They'll call in and get one of my 15 minutes, and they'll say they want this, and what's the best way to go about it? And then I say, well, do you have any idea what that's going to cost? And as soon as I start talking about what they just outlined, all of a sudden, a lot of people go numb because they really didn't think that far ahead as far as their budget and their expectations. So get your budget and expectations in line. That's another advantage of having one of my 15-minute consults is if you've got a budget and an idea, a plan, or where you want to be, will help you work backwards from there. So that you get the best route, the most cost effective, so you don't have to redo things. The next one is stick with a proven philosophy. Like my philosophy is completely different than anybody else in the aftermarket in motorsports or in the Mustang world. Whether you stick with mine or if there's somebody else out there that you like the philosophy, what they do, stick with it. Don't mix and match. The worst calls I get is people call in and the car really doesn't work very well, and they start listing out the parts, and they got this component here, the springs there, shocks there, control arms here. They get everybody's parts on there. As soon as you start putting a whole bunch of parts from a whole bunch of different places, what you're doing is, you might not realize it, but you are on your very own R&D program. And because you're going to have to find out how all that works together. When people call in, they got all that stuff. I don't have good answers because I don't know how all that stuff works together because I've never done it. With mine, mine's philosophy is pretty straightforward. The whole suspension system we do now started in 1986, actually 87, with the championship Saline cars, and it's progressed to the point it is, up to actually AGS 4.5 now for the S197s. So, stick with the philosophy, whether it's mine or somebody else's, because if you stick with, if it's like, another company and you like them, you've had a relationship with them before, stick with them. Because if you have a problem, they're going to be able to tell you how to fix it. If you're working with my philosophy, my stuff, if you have a problem, we're going to be able to tell you how to work through it. And then the last is choose your parts carefully. The worst thing you want to do is you don't want the cheapest parts ever. Because the cheapest parts are the most expensive. And if you long term, cheap parts are expensive. Choose your parts. Like if you're using my philosophy, try to get everything from this program. If you like somebody else, try to get all your parts from them, and just don't get seduced by all these online sites where you got all these different parts to choose from. Try to stick with somebody that can tell you what to do. So anyway, that's kind of like the 5 critical steps. And I think I mentioned through here, if you really want help, I've got my 15-minute consults, which we do quite a bit of, and they're very, very popular. People are pretty blown away to actually take the time to talk to them and share real information, not something somebody read on the internet or heard. And what we ended up doing is, this is kind of, Kerry gave me this is kind of an example we did for Joe Doe. We took the name out to protect the innocent, and also the phone number. But this was like for an 18 GT, and I don't know if you can see this. We just go down, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and because a lot of people, for budget considerations, can't do it all at once. So I'll come up with a plan and we'll put it in a logical format, so you can actually do step 1, and then when you can afford it, step 2, and just go all the way down. And that way you don't have to back up and redo. You're using a plan. You're working to a plan, and when you put stuff on, it's going to work with the next stuff you put on and the next stuff you put on. So performance planning is super critical. And like I say, my 15-minute consults, I will do the best I can to get you on the right path. So, okay, so what else do we have to talk about today? I'm going to share a little bit of Aerotech. from the Academy. In the Academy, we spent actually 2 whole weeks just on aero, and it's kind of one of the most popular segments of the Academy. But I thought we've got some things that I do as far as aero that are pretty simple, and I've been doing it for a very long time. And since we started, I mean, this goes back to the 90s. We started doing this kind of stuff, and since then, a lot of people again copied it, and it's just some simple things that we do that really helps the aero on the car. So with that, I'm going to see if we can make this work. Ta-da! Okay, there's 2 little videos in here. When we tested it, Carrie said that they're a little bit small and that the sound was low. So we're actually we'll post this whole presentation in the society so that you can go back and look at it and download it. But here's some of my personal tricks I'm sharing with you, and just a little peek into what we talk about in the Academy.
And the reason is it's got a lot of splitter in the front, but not much on the edges. And the corners is where you're going to make your downforce. So what we've done, we've actually added an extension down here, fog line around.
You can? I'm not seeing it.
You're not seeing it?
No, I'm seeing you drink a cup of coffee.
Okay. Let's see what happened. Let me go back. Were you hearing it?
I was hearing it. We just couldn't see it. We're just looking at, like I said, you drinking a cup of coffee. So.
I wonder what happened.
Well, go ahead and get in it again.
Well, I don't know what happened there. Of course, it worked before, and now it's not going to work.
Well, how about you do this? You go on to your next subject, and I will get it working from my end, and then we'll play it from right after that. How's that sound? So why don't you go into show and tell and show the...
Can you see that at all?
Nope, all I see is you. So don't worry about it. Just go into, I'll show it from my end. So just go into your springs and shocks. So guys that have been with us for a while, we haven't had a technical issue for a little bit. So all of you that have been with us for a long time can just chuckle with us a little bit today.
Yeah, I don't understand because we tried it right before and it worked.
Don't worry about it. Just go on to your shocks and struts.
Okay. Okay, so I'm getting all these little messages up here. Okay, let's talk about the what we did for the come up with a cost-effective coil-over package for S197. Now for the S197s, we've got a couple. I don't have a lot of choices because I only stick with what I like and what I know and what I use. And we've got at the street performance end, we've got a really nice coil-over package that's non-adjustable, great for street performance and touring, even good for track days. Has like around a 400 maybe front spring rate. Then we've got the RSS package, which is really popular. Fronts are adjustable, the rears are not. But it's like a 630 spring rate, but the shocks are so good it doesn't feel like that. I mean, those are kind of cost-effective packages. But when we get into coilovers, what we've got right now is our premium coilover package, which are JRZs that I have custom built for me in the Netherlands, and then they ship them over. But the thing is, I mean, they're like a little more expensive. I mean, quite a little more expensive. Not as expensive as the motorsport shocks, but they're a little more expensive. So we needed to come up with something in between. The reason is because my new AGS 4.5, new K-Link rear suspension, that creates so much grip at the back that to rebalance the car, we have to go up significantly on rear spring rate. And what we found is any of the off-the-shelf, cost-effective packages that we use won't take any more than like 100 pounds extra spring rate on the existing shocks. So that means that we've had to come up with a different solution. So we went to our friends up at Strange, and Strange already custom builds shocks for the SN95 for me. And it's kind of strange, no pun intended, but Strange is like they're 99.98% drag racing, period. So, I mean, when people tell people we get Strange builds my shocks, they drag racing people. Well, in this case, we needed a new shock partner because we were using Coney's, but at the time, for the rear of the IRS, but at the time it was taking forever to get turnaround on them because their race customers got priority, and it was taking like sometimes a month and a half, 2 months just to get shocks built. So we went to Strange, and I went up there. I got a notebook, all these different shock dynos I've collected over a lot of years. And I sat down with Dimitri for shock dyno. I said, this is kind of what I'm looking for. And I laid out a couple of different shock dynos as far as valving strategy. And he looked at it and said, yeah, we can do that. So long story short, the Strange does our IRS shock packages, custom valve to my specifications. And only they come double adjustable in the front, but they come either single or double adjustable in the back for the IRS. We also can use those for we have a different valving for the IRS or for the live axle cars than IRS. But IRS takes a lot more spring and a lot more shock. Anyway, so we called up to JC at Strange and said, can we build this for S197? They said, well, we don't have a shock for S197. So they do build it for drag racing. So what they're doing is they're putting the exact same valving package that we have for the SN95 into the S197 package. So we got the fronts, which are double adjustable, and then the rear, either single or double adjustable. Anybody that has the K-Link, we're going to double adjustable. It gives a little bit more capability on tuning for getting the car to work a little better. But the thing is, we really had to work to get these coilovers on the back. What we found is there's not a lot of room. Now the JRZs just barely fit because they use a 2 1/4 spring. The Strange are 2.5 spring diameter, which makes it kind of tight. So what we've done is we actually worked with one of our customers on this. We actually convert, rather than using the right standard bayonet fitting on top, go through the top, we actually use rod ends on both ends, and we have this extra bracket. And what we do is we offset the bracket. We offset the shock in the bracket. And I mean, it's just, it's a tight fit. In fact, there's a couple little, body panels. I mean, I'm not talking big things and like little sheet metal that has to be trimmed up a little bit, but they do fit. And if you've got somebody that's got really big tires, then what we'll do is we'll just use the shock, and we do have a way to put a higher spring rate on axle. The on axle spring rate has to be higher than the spring rate on the shock just because of what's called motion ratio. And that's a difference between the center of the axle to the shock versus the spring on axle. If you're in the academy, you'll learn all about that and how to figure motion ratio. So anyway, this is the package we come up for the rear, and you can see it's got double adjustable on the bottom, spherical bearing on the bottom, spherical bearing on the top. It does require a little bit of modification to get it to fit, but they do fit, which is a big plus. So, and then that's a big plunk. And this is the front coilover that they make double adjustable. You can see the bump adjustments on the bottom, rebound adjustment on top. And I had to, the reason, if you order a spring and shock package from me, it's going to come just like this. It's going to come pre-assembled, and they're going to be pre-adjusted to a base adjustment that you can start with. Now, the thing is, the reason we do that is I have to get the spacing right to get the camber plates on. All these shocks are different, and anytime in the past that we've sent just drop ship shocks and parts to the customer, I'm on the phone, a number of times trying to get them to help get them through how to set the thing up. So rather than that, I mean, you get them from me. They're assembled, they're ready to install. It's the rear shocks, the front shocks, and they're pre-adjusted to what I think the setting should be. And the other thing is I personally pick for every single coilover customer, I personally pick the spring rate based off the use of the car. And the cool thing about coilovers is, like, if we get a coilover set up for somebody that's doing mostly street with a teeny bit of track, and all of a sudden they say, well, I want to do more track and we'll move up from novice to intermediate. Boom, we just, it's a piece of cake, pop the spring up and new spring on. So changing spring rates is really easy. And when we're racing, we'll have like whole shelves full of springs so we can change spring rates to get the cars to work. So, I mean, that's the good news. We do have a cost-effective setup for S197. And as far as, you can say, what do they cost? Well, the rules around here is you can ask me anything but part numbers and prices. I don't think we have them on the website yet, but if you go on the website and look up for the coilovers for the SN95, price is going to be pretty comparable.
Actually, Brad did get them up on the website.
Oh, they're up on the website. Mm-hmm. Probably doesn't have a good picture of it yet, though.
Well, close. He's doing well. He's Superman. Okay.
So anyway, and then the other cool thing is when you get your shocks, you will get a setup sheet. This is kind of a sample of the setup sheet that you get. What's listed on here is the shocks, the spring rates, helper spring, whether it's got a sway bar or not, and bump and rebound adjust and recommended sway bar setting. And we're going to add a line now. We're going to have added a line for the K-Link, because the K-Link that's another thing that you have to talk to me about. Because the K-Link, we have to get the spring rates, rear spring rate close to the front spring rate. Also, depending on what size tire, the diameter of the tire will dictate what size radius rods that we use to get the right roll center. Speaking of K-Link, I think we're going to do another introduction. We've done two and a half batches of K-Links right now. They're out in the field, and we're ready to do another batch. So we'll probably do another I don't know, reveal or workshop or whatever. But we're going to go through the whole K-Link thing again, and the results we're getting from customers is just phenomenal. I think Steve out in Oregon picked up 3 or 4 seconds the first time out and did a little tuning and picked up another couple seconds. David, one of my race car customers out in California, went at Sears Point. He picked up 8 seconds off his best previous time, and then we made some adjustments and he picked up another 2 seconds. And we've got people that are just raving about how stable the car is. The thing is, when you put a K-Link on, you have to learn how to drive the car all over again, because what happens is you always got traction in the back, no matter what the car is doing, no matter how much roll. You got both tires always on the ground, always with the same amount of weight, always the same amount of torque to both wheels and tires. Which we've got one customer with a GT 500 that's really had to kind of relearn a lot of things, because he's going around the corner and he's used to that inside wheel, kind of lifting up and waiting to get back to the gas. It doesn't lift anymore. So he's having to relearn. Anyway, the K-Link is an amazing piece of kit. I mean, you don't pick up tenths of a second, you pick up seconds on lap times. I mean, a lot of seconds. So we stay tuned, and we'll schedule another reveal, I guess we'll call it, another opportunity for the next batch of people to buy the next batch of K-Links. But a really cool product. But I got everything in today. I talked about 15-minute consults, which I strongly recommend. If you got some questions that you can't get an answer to, set up a 15-minute consult. I think Kerry said today somebody scheduled one on a Mercury Marauder, which we used to build, but we don't build them anymore. I'm sure they want some kind of information. So I'll have a chat with them and see how I can help. And even so, like a lot of people call set 15 minutes up for technical things. And again, I'll try to help. So we've been through the build plan. We've been through the S197 shock setup, which we're pretty excited about. And gosh, we're on to, can you get the thing to work? Kerry, do you think? Kerry? I think I lost Kerry.
Did you see it? Did you see it?
Yeah, now I got a blank screen.
Okay, let me try again. I just knew you couldn't talk to me, so let me share it again.
Nothing's happening.
Okay, I have no idea what's going on.
Okay, let me try again from my end, because it worked before.
I know. Remember to put the volume on.
Okay, I make sure I pull it up. Yep, it's there.
Did you hit the volume?
No, I mean, I just want to make sure the PowerPoint was still up. So we will try once again. Ah, you see it?
Yep.
Yay! Okay. Phew. Once again, we have, through perseverance and extremely great technical skills, we have overcome a glitch. So, here's first of the little videos. You might have, let's see, I need to make sure the volume is all the way up.
And the reason is that a lot of splitter in the front, but not much on the edges. And the corners is where you're going to make your downforce. So what we've done, we've actually added an extension down here, fog line around, and we've come out this far and put the shield on there so that if you look on head on, you won't see the tire. So the air won't come in and hit the tire, crash into the tire, and then go under the front. Rather, this is going to create a low pressure area. The air is going to flow over, create low pressure, and rotating tire is going to build up pressure right at 2 o'clock. So if the tire is building up pressure at 2 o'clock and we have low pressure here, it's going to help suck that air out and pull the front of the car down. So it's kind of like some pretty good downforce, just right on the corner of the car.
Okay, that's number one.
Happy with this FR500S. And the reason is,
Okay, now this is kind of showing, how we actually do that. We'll make cardboard templates, and this is really, by using the cardboard, you really see, the outline of what we've done, increasing the surface area on the around the corner. Because right here, normally, if most splitters, or they stick way out in the front and they taper back on the sides. Well, right back here and you've got kind of a curved area. You got high speed air. High speed is low pressure. So it's, low pressure is on the outside and builds high pressure on the inside, which is why they float a little bit. So by doing this, we're building up high pressure here and low pressure back there. And then again, like the Speed Therapy Academy guys can tell you exactly what happens, because they've seen the computational fluid dynamics. So this is what it looks like when it's all put on. And somebody asked about, well, doesn't that want to push this down? Well, what we do, this is like pop riveted to the inside of the fender, and then we use a little angle plate so that it kind of supports not only from the splitter, but from the side. And there's another shot at it. And we put bolts on there just to kind of make it look kind of cool. Now, this is the same thing we do at the back. I can see the side splitter here, and this is covering the tire. I mean, if you get down on your knees and you look straight back, if you can see any of the tire, front or rear, then the air can see the tire. The air sees the tire, it's going to hit the tire, and it's going to, some's going to go around the outside, some's going to go the inside. You don't want it on the inside.
The whole purpose of this is a rotating tire, and I'm looking at it from this side, would have a high pressure area built up right about 2 o'clock. So by adding this little bit of a lip on here, what we're doing is we're diverting the air out, which means this is going to be some low pressure. But the low pressure is going to help evacuate the high pressure off the tire so that it doesn't build up pressure on the car and keeps the back of the car down.
So now here's kind of another view of that, what we do. And this is something, my gosh, we've been doing for years and years. I mean, everybody thought it was revolutionary back in 2000, I think, when we had all this kit on Kermie. And if you see any of the track cars that I built, you're going to see this exact same thing every single time. And it's all about managing the air. There's another shot of it. Now here's an example on SN95. Again, it's the corners that we're looking at to build some downforce. So we've built kind of corner splitters on here that come out. And again, we're looking at shielding the air from the tire. If the tire were on and you're looking at it straight on, you would not see the tire. You would just see this. So air is coming around here. It's going to be coming across and not going in under the car and making a little low pressure, just like I explained. And it creates some really nice downforce without a whole lot of effort. And here's another view of it from the side, and you can see how much we brought this out and added the shielding on the fender. And here's a side splitter that we like. It's a 95 cars. It's easy to do at ABS because under the rocker it's dead flat, which makes it really handy. But the whole idea about having a side splitter is because the body is curved here. Air wants to come. You're going down the road. Air wants to follow this curve under and roll under the car. Well, the more air you put under the car, the more positive pressure you're building. And, the top of the car is curved, so that's got negative pressure. So, going down the road, that's why some cars get really floaty at high speed because they're building high pressure under the car and then low pressure on top. With this way, if we put this little splitter on there, it kind of keeps the air from rolling under and helps keep low pressure under the car. So, okay, I'm back. So that's kind of like what we do to all of our track cars. Oh, it's got early on. If you got questions, send them in. Those who have been with us for a while know that I always try to answer your questions at the end. Carrie kind of manages through that. So if you've already sent one in, great. If you have another question, send it in. So anyway, that's kind of a little sampling of what we do in the academy. Also in the springs and shocks, we spend an entire 1 week on just talking about shock theory, shock design, shock mechanicals, shock adjustment. So yeah, I mean, if you really want to learn this stuff, I suggest you think about signing up for the next academy. So I think I've been through everything. Let me look on my list just to make sure. You know what I forgot, Carrie? YouTube. YouTube. We need a hat trick. Like, subscribe, and bell. So hit all three of those. If you don't, it might rain on you today. And then Facebook, do the like and share with your buddies. So that helps us spread the word. And the more people we get involved with this, the better it gets. Because the more questions we get and the more tech things I can answer, the more solutions I can help people with. So I think I've gotten through everything, Gary.
Great. Just one more thing also for the people, there's a lot of people that watch after the fact, and even those that are live right now on YouTube, on the Kenny Brown Performance TV YouTube channel. We have all 62 episodes of Cars and Coffee, along with different sections with different tech tips. So if you're looking for a tech tip, something on brakes, we have a brake section where you can go through all the Kenny's tech tips on brakes. That's just an example. There's a whole bunch of other subjects there, so it's a really good resource for you. The other place where there are resources is in the Speed Therapy Society. That's our private Facebook group. So make sure you join up for that, and you'll find out about all the events. That's where a lot of our online live events are held as well. So let's get on to some of the questions, Kenny.
Okay.
Okay. And first of all, I have Herstifer, which is an interesting comment, and this kind of we'll kind of just read it. It was really nice, Herstifer. This is great. Herstifer comes from our Speed Therapy Academy. He's actually one of our alumni right now. So the big thing about Kenny philosophy is that he knows what a race car is, and it will make your car magic. I'm sure that his cars drive amazing, even if I've never driven one. If you follow his philosophy, you will have amazing moments with your Mustangs. So that was very nice of you, Herstifer.
Yeah, appreciate that, Herstifer.
Yeah.
We got a comment from Herstifer a few weeks back that said that, he followed, he's obviously a graduate of the academy, but he kind of followed everything that we did. And I've had a couple conversations with him, and he said it just made such a huge improvement this season when he went out for his track days. He's so much quicker. So, I mean, that's the whole idea is, information, knowledge is power. So it's not, if you want to go quickly, it's not just about engine power. It's about knowing how to make everything else work. So
Yeah, and he also comments here, and I'm just going to put a little plug in for the build plan, because everybody that does a 15-minute with Kenny, specifically on creating a build plan with him, comes away with a physical sheet or email with exactly what you should do in what order. And that really saves you a lot of time and money. So if you're interested in that, just sign up for a 15-minute consult. The link is in the comments, and we'll be posting it on our social media channels as well. So anyway, Christopher did one a long time ago, and he's still following it, and he's getting a lot of information out of it. Okay, let's get on to questions.
Okay, before you get on to questions, let me throw something in. You mentioned brakes. We were planning on having a brake workshop, except we're kind of so busy, and we want to do another, like, supposed to be 3, ends up being a 5-day workshop. And we also want to do another introduction to the K-Link. So what we're going to do is, because of time, we're going to take the break, and we're going to do it on Saturday morning. We're just going to have one Saturday morning. It's just going to be all about brakes. So we're switching from like an evening workshop to a Saturday Cars and Coffee on brakes. So stay tuned. And you'll know when that's coming up, which should be in a few weeks. I think next week it looks like I'm talking about S550 street and track and the things that you can do to make them better. And hopefully I'll have an update on Roy's car, where we're getting rid of the hydro boost and converting to manual brakes and just standard power steering. Almost done. We ran into a couple other things. Not related to the brakes that we have to fix because it's a race car. And the number one thing about race cars is you need to know is race cars break things. That's their job. So we're fixing a couple other things. Next week I should have answers on how well our work. I'll probably take some pictures to show, but everything works according to plan. It's gonna be pretty cool, because the hydro boost has been kind of like one of those things. Some days it works perfectly. Some days he has steering and no brakes. Some days he has brakes and no steering. So we're trying to eliminating all that. Hopefully I have an update on that next week.
That's kind of scary when you're on the track racing too.
Yeah, well, that shows just how brave he is.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, here's our first question from Sal. Why don't you invert the shocks and put the springs on the bottom? That's referring to when you're talking about the KB shocks.
Okay. If you were in the academy, you would learn that these are twin tube atmospheric shock. And because of that, you got an outer tube, an inner tube, you got valving, and you've got an air pocket that's just natural air in here. If you were to invert it, it wouldn't work. Because the air pocket would go to the top, you've got a little valving at the bottom, it just will not go. A twin tube shock has to be mounted vertical. However, like on our JRZ RS Pros, the double adjustables with remote canister, those are a monotube shock, and the monotube shock we do invert on the back. So the only way you can invert a shock is if it's monotube. That means there's only one tube instead of twin tube. But yeah, if you got a monotube, we mount the monotube shocks upside down because we can. And it also makes it easier because on those you got the remote canister, and with the mounted inverted, and it's really easy. Just take the line and just run it through into the trunk. So, yep, there we go. You can invert a monotube, but not a twin tube. Okay.
So yes, and guess who is in the house?
Who?
Brian Carrick.
Hey, Brian. Brian is one of our heroes. Brian spent 2 years on track testing the K-Link, and his job was to break it. Because Brian, he drives hard. He's really fast. He really drives hard. And he can break things. A lot of rough tracks down in Texas. And in the two and a half years that he was doing development on K-Link, he never broke anything.
He's racing competitively.
Yeah, he was real competitive. It took him from mid-pack to the podium. Let's put it that way. And in the process, though, we did learn about just the way the initial design was of prototypes. We identified some potential long-term wear issues. And I think we made, I can't remember, 2 or 3 updates on the original prototype. We went as far as we could go with what was there. And I told Brian that we were going to do the final updates on the production piece. And just a couple of weeks back, he got one of the production pieces, and he was kind of really impressed with. He could see on the production piece, the result of all the input he gave to us. So yeah, Brian's one of our heroes. I mean, he really did a good job for us. Okay.
Next question. Chris Pergo, how big of a rear tire can you run with strange coilovers? And then he has a second question. Well, why don't you answer that, and I'll give you the second question from him.
Okay, my answer, I'm not sure yet. This is like a brand new package. I'd have to check and see what size tires Art's running on the back of his. I think part of that too is the offset on the wheel. I mean, I'm hoping we can still run at 305, but we're going to find out in the coming weeks as we get more of these out. Like I say, we just haven't. I mean, it's a brand new product. We've actually had some customers help us in the development of this. I mean, that's kind of a cool thing with our program is we got great customers, and it's like by having customers help and giving feedback, that just kind of moves the process along really well. So we'll know in the coming weeks. I will keep that question in mind and get an answer for you when we have an answer. Okay.
And Chris, just so you know, what Kenny does is, especially on new products, he'll consult with you. If we get a call in and you're interested in ordering that, then he consults and we'll find out what size tire you have, and we'll work with you through the process. So that's part of our program. Here's his second question: do the strange front shocks come with camber plates?
Yeah, they come just as you see them, completely assembled with camber plates and the right bushing stack, so that everything works. So yeah, and anytime you get a coilover shock from me, coilover struts, it's completely assembled with camber plate on top and pre-adjusted with a setup sheet. So something else on the wide tire thing, if you have a really wide tire and it would get into the springs, that's not a problem. We can mount just the shock in there, and we can put the springs on axle. It's just that the spring rate has to be higher on the axle than it would be on the shock, and we've done that. We've got a couple people running that setup. That was the first setup we did with just the shock without coilovers, and then putting a higher spring rate on the axle. And it's kind of a little kit that we get. You can use the same 2.5-inch spring, which means changing spring rates is pretty easy. So there's two solutions there. Okay.
Okay, the next one, well, I just want to comment on this. So Cliff, who actually Kenny designed those Wickers when his car was in a few months ago, but he was in a horrible earthquake in Nevada, and he comments that everything, it was pretty scary, but the good thing is none of the tools fell off his shelf in his garage.
That's the important thing.
Yeah, he always has a good outlook on life. Here's one from Christopher. Still trying to figure out if 500-pound springs will be too much for me on the street because our roads are terrible in Bulgaria. Even OEM suspension is not great. Do you have any comments on that, or do you want to answer it?
Yeah, we did the whole 550 suspension is a lot different than anything that came before it. And we did quite a bit, not quite a bit, but we did some development and testing on different spring rates on the S550s. And a lot of it boils down to the shock package, the valving in the shock. And if the shock valving is really aggressive, 500-pound springs is going to be pretty sporty. What I've come up with is for street performance, we're at 350 in the front, and then they're stupid high spring rate at the back because you got to figure in the motion ratio. But I always work off the front and then match the back. And then for like street track is likely to be 500 or 550. And then for advanced track, like on our JRZ RS Pros, I mean, the valving in those shocks are amazing. We'll run like a 650 because it's a coilover on the back. So a 500-pound spring, it depends on the shocks you've got with it and the valving. Just how aggressive it gets. I mean, if you've got some pretty decent valving that's got some, that'll take bumps. It kind of has a blow-off valve in it. It might not be too bad. So anyway, that's what we're doing. 350 for street performance, 500 or 550 for street track with a lot of track, and then 650 for track with the JRZ RS Pros. So yeah, it just depends on what shocks you're running. I know the JRZs S550, they're actually pretty aggressive valving. There might be some others out there. I know you're close to some other manufacturers out there, so you might kind of check with them. So it's kind of like a round the block answer, but all boils down to the shocks. Okay.
Well, again, and Christopher, if you have any questions, more questions for Kenny, we can you can address them. This Wednesday is the Speed Therapy Academy monthly alumni meeting, so you can obviously ask them questions during that session live. So, and that's conducted on Zoom. Here's our next question. Here we go, Kenny. With the addition of those aero splitter, side splitters, wheel housing arrow, will the change require shock setting changes? It's a good question.
That's a really good question. Now, the thing is, though, your shock adjustment has to tune, is good for tuning the car. In essence, when you're creating more downforce, you're just putting more weight on the car. And as far as adjusting shocks, that all depends on what the car's doing. I mean, you use shock adjustment to tune the car. Does not turn in quite as much at a bump? Is mid corner or corner exit? It's pushing a little bit. You had some rebound. So actually, the shock has to do with more than shock tuning. So as far as just making a shock adjustment, you put the arrow on. We don't do that. Anytime we make an adjustment on a shock, we're looking for a specific outcome. So would it actually change the shock settings? It depends on the car and the track. It might, but basically, I'm looking more at the with arrow to get the tires planted, and then the shock adjustment to tune it to make it go faster.
Okay, that sounds good. This is last call for questions. So if anybody has any questions, this is the time to add them to the comments. Here is first of all, I see Randy Cotton. Hi, Randy. Randy has bought one of the K-Links, and I think, Kenny, you are talking to him early next week on his shock package.
Yeah, I think we're going to chat Monday on the spring and shock package, because he's getting the K-Link.
Okay, here's just a comment, I guess. Brakes. All I know is that the bare brakes you put on my car are awesome. Combined with the suspension changes you made, the car pulls down and stops with control. Has moved my braking points closer to the corners. Good stuff. That's a nice comment.
That's a nice comment. And that's kind of like my whole philosophy on the suspension is with the Mustang, the strength of the Mustang is straight line speed. Or drag racing car, big V8 motor in the front, no weight, and a live axle on the back. So I mean, the strength is the straightaways. So if you can brake later than everybody else, you just made the straightaway that much longer. And then, of course, the way the roll centers are set up and the front, the cars just rotate really well, and you can get the power down sooner. You don't have to wait as long for the axle to settle. That's what the AGS 4.0. 4.5, you just turn the wheel and put your foot down and go because you got traction. So, yeah, that's kind of what's next.
Okay, so that's right now the last question. Again, this is last call. If you have any other questions, add them in. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until next Saturday to ask your question.
Yeah, you can always send them into the society during the week too, and I can get them on my little printout for next week. Or subject matter. If there's certain subject matter you guys want to know about, send that in. Because what I talk about comes from the society and what people want to know about.
Or right now, if you have an idea what you want to hear him talk about, add it right now to the comments.
Let us know.
We pay attention to comments.
To help you as much as I can.
Okay, so also Joe Johnson, you had a couple questions, but I think we will answer those so you can talk directly with Kenny in the Speed Therapy Academy alumni meeting this coming Wednesday. So everything is back to normal for us. We had a 1 week break through the 4th of July holiday from our Speed Therapy Academy. Everything starts up again this Tuesday. So Kenny, you are busy Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week.
Busy week.
Yeah, busy week.
And also, I think last week we had Steve Shards from Forge Line Wheels scheduled to do a masterclass Thursday, but he at the last minute he had some family issues that he had to attend to, so we're going to reschedule him a little later on. So, but he hasn't gone away. We just have to reschedule. He was like last Thursday was the only time that he could do it, and that got screwed up. So he's going to find another only time he can do it again. So okay, so to recap, we got 15-minute consult so I can help you figure out problems, issues, or a build plan. We're We're going to do a Saturday break. It's going to count breaks on a Saturday morning rather than an evening class. Let's see, K-Link, there's going to be another K-Link introduction, another opportunity to get one of these amazing, super amazing rear suspensions. I think what we're going to do is get some feedback that we'll share with you guys from the guys that already have it on the car. Like I say, you don't pick up tenths, you pick up seconds a lot. And we've got Academy starting at the end of August, the Fall Academy. So that's kind of like a recap.
Got a lot of things happening. So just one comment from Chris. He has a good idea for a subject. I'll just read that and see. I'm sure other people will be interested in it. Right here, Chris. I have a good subject. How to cover items to protect from heat. I burned up my starter on track. Have to cover it and maybe some other things.
Oh, that's a good. So yeah, we can talk about that. Heat. There's a couple of things in track and racing. Your enemy. First of all, weight is your enemy. The more weight you have, the slower you are. The other thing is heat management. Because cars, engines create big bangs in the cylinders, and those bangs creates heat, and that heat goes somewhere. So yeah, we can do a little bit on that. Yeah, that's a good subject to cover. Okay.
Okay, great. And I guess we can be done. I just want to mention, if you have a number of places to watch Kenny Brown Cars and Coffee live. You can watch it live on the Kenny Brown Performance Facebook group, in the Kenny Brown Performance Speed Therapy Society private Facebook group, and also on YouTube, Kenny Brown Performance TV YouTube channel. And then if you're watching afterwards, I would recommend going to our YouTube channel and viewing the replay there.
Okay, I think we got everything in. Well, that's it. That's it for us, us this weekend. Have a good rest of the weekend. For the Speed Therapy Academy guys, I will see you Tuesday night on Zoom, and Wednesday and Thursday. It's a busy week for the Academy guys. So everybody else, have a good weekend, and send some subject matters in you'd like me to talk about, or questions. I mean, that's what I'm here for, is to share what I can from a lot of you doing this stuff. So anyway, glad you could join me this morning. I hope you learned something, and if you did, pass it on to your buddies, because the reason I'm doing this is there's so much bad information out there. I tell people the two worst places to get information about your car is in the paddock, on the internet, or of course that guy down the street that thinks he knows everything. So with that, have a good weekend, and I will see everybody next week.